Hello, Brandon. You're live on the air. Brandon, are you there?
Yep.
Okay, there he is.
Okay, wrong. Yeah, okay.
No worries. What do you have for us this evening?
All right, yeah, first of all, well, I just wanted to give a kind of a slap to moral relativism.
Sure, go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to give an example, because I've fought this battle for a long time, and I lived in an area that was rabid with postmodernism and feminism and relativism. And, I might have even fallen into that trap of, you had all these New Age books, like the Dancing Woolly Masters and the Tao of Physics and things like that. Things that wanted to equate God with quantum physics. And the problem with that is that that's just one interpretation. That's the Copenhagen interpretation of how quantum physics works. It's just one interpretation of what came out of that whole movement. I think that's why Einstein said that God doesn't play dice. That, in fact, relativism only applies on the quantum scale. It's not to be applied on the human scale. Another way I would get into arguments, I'd say, people often say to me, well, there is no truth. There is no good. And they say, well, I say, well, is that statement true? And it kind of stop them in their tracks, and if it's true, then there is truth.
There you go.
If it's false, then that's false, and there's nothing. It's nihilism. Another way I do that, and that's just truth. So let's go on to morality. I often teach at seminars on philosophy and to feminists and stuff like that, and there'd be a guy or two in the class, and I'd say, well, there is no truth. There is no real good or evil. Come on. And because, well, okay, there's no. But what is it then? Well, it's all based on power. True. Real good and evil is based on who has the power at the time, and you can see in history how it sways from what's good in one age is bad in another age. Okay. So I say, okay, well, right now I have the power. I'm going to separate the class into two groups, men and women. And all the men are going to get A's, and all the women are going to fail. Well, what's it? Immediately from well, that's unfair.
Mm-hmm.
Grounds. Nothing.
Because if you're in power and you get to make up what's right and wrong, well, then that's right, isn't it?
Yes, and in fact, it's rooted in extreme narcissism. It's basically saying what is truthful is truthful for me.
That's right. I call this the arbiter of truth syndrome. That's my personal little branding or coining of this mentally diseased condition that people have fallen into, that they believe that humanity can somehow be the arbiter of truth, that we get to decide what is true and what is not true, instead of through opening our perceptions and taking in what's really there, discovering what is true for ourselves.
Yep. So, some really great books on this. It's just C.S. Lewis's The Abolition of Man. He says about relativism, he said it will surely damn our souls and end the world and ruin and damn our souls. Okay? And Oxonians are, they don't really exaggerate that much.
Right.
And then, you have people like, relativists. They're just stuck in this possible. I call it boomeritis, because it seems to take hold with the boomer baby age.
Yep.
That whole
the people
generation
who were plopped down in front of the television by the so-called greatest generation after that generation fought World War II and then thought everything was just peachy keen in the whole world, and they rested on their laurels, weren't vigilant whatsoever, and were completely asleep at the switch while this country was taken from the inside by both Nazism and communism. And they plopped their children down. They accepted all the new technological innovations that came into their lives around that time and said, well, we don't need to really truly raise our children, and plopped them down in front of a TV, fed them TV dinners, and the state took their minds in short order, I might add. And if people think that's too harsh of a judgment to pass upon both the so-called greatest generation and the baby boomer generation? Well, guess what? Look around and take a look at where we're at right now. Okay, that's a result of people being asleep at the switch.
Very well put, and they're the most. I think the baby boomer generation is the reason why we are stuck at where we are at right now. The baby boomer the so-called greatest generation, which also includes the '60s. By the way,
the greatest generation. I'm talking about World War II era, and then their children, their next generation, would be considered the baby boomer generation.
Yeah,
I'm talking about those two generations being largely responsible for where we are at now in human history, at least in the United States. It's something that many people don't want to talk about. And I'm not just pointing fingers and saying, oh, it's all just that group. Of course, a lot of people bear responsibility for it. But really, the powers that should not be slammed through so many agendas during that time period and just slipped it right by people's minds in both of those generations. Because, like I said, they were just completely asleep at the switch. They were distracted. They were, raised on television, particularly the baby boomer generation. They were raised on TV. The propaganda worked so well on them because it was fresh. No one had analyzed it. No one had understood how it worked. And they took their minds at a very, very deep level. Most of them. Now, I'm not making a blanket statement. I'm not saying all of them were taken, but the vast majority for certain.
Yeah. And, I know just reading that Mussolini and Mao Zedong, they were moral relativists.
Oh, sure.
So fascism and communism.
It's a cornerstone of both of those ideologies. Cornerstone of both of those political ideologies is moral relativism. Absolutely.
So, it really is the most dangerous thing out there. I'm glad you're fighting that good fight, Mark, and I hope to see you in Connecticut.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're fighting it as well. Keep up the great work, Brandon.